Welcome back to the Bitcoin Magazine News Desk. We are here at day 2 of Bitcoin Amsterdam 2025, presented by Treasury. I'm Frank Corva, Bitcoin journalist, joined by a legendary panel. To my left here, I have Hunter Albright, the Chief Revenue Officer at Salt Lending, as well as a man who needs no introduction, Peter McCormack, Chair of Real Bedford, as well as host of the Peter McCormack Show, and Christine Lee, crypto journalist extraordinaire. We have an action-packed day here at the event. We have Jack Mahlers later on, Adam Back later on, a keynote from Saifedean Ammous, author of the Bitcoin Standard, who joined us here on the desk yesterday. But first, let's get down to business, talk a little bit about something we were just talking about off camera. Bitcoin conferences have surely changed over the years, the type of people who are coming to these conferences, right? Early on, we had far more of the cypherpunks, the libertarians, maybe the anarcho-capitalists. Now we have a lot more of an institutional side coming here, joining us at these events. Peter, we were talking about this earlier. Your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think it's natural, but we've kind of lost our punk rock edge.
All right.
We were here. We were meant to get rich and go out and defeat the man, and we're now merging with the man. And we still live. I think we live in precarious times. We are not dealing with the issues of currency debasement, but we're working directly with the people who are debasing the currency.
Yeah, but this is what we've always talked about in this space, that we wanted mainstream adoption. We wanted more people using Bitcoin.
When you say we, who is we in your mind?
The community. The community. The community wanted folks to be using Bitcoin. They wanted global adoption. And so this is what it's looking like.
I think that's a fair point. Hunter, so if Bitcoin is to become ubiquitous, to be ingrained in every, nook and cranny, every, crack in society, is this the way it has to go at some point where the institution's destined to arrive here?
I do. I mean, I think we're seeing a shift from sort of early adopters that were passionate about the cause, passionate about sort of the broader movement with the technology.
Yep.
But and then I think the question goes, how do you sustain it over the long term, and how do you integrate it? I have seen, in terms of my experience with the conferences and also global exposure, I feel like it comes in, it starts with the movement, starts with some of the politics and sort of the cyberpunk sort of ethos, moves into, then I think you see day traders. Like, how do I make a quick buck quickly? Because they see sort of the ups and downs and the interest in terms of building short-term wealth. For me, I think it's the people that have the long-term perspective, both from the infrastructure of the asset, of the technology, as well as the potential implications for everybody's wealth and just sort of financial outcome.
And Hunter, would you say you came from the world of traditional finance and you found your way to Bitcoin?
I did. I spent over 20 years running global credit card and loan portfolios, and so understand the convenience of retail finance, but also understand some of its weaknesses. And I think we were talking off camera early on about when you think about what Bitcoin brings from a sort of sovereign, sort of censorship-resistant ability to conduct commerce globally and have an asset, like that feels like more under threat in whatever country you're in, including the United States. And I think that may reignite some of the ethos about the fundamental why people came into Bitcoin to begin with.
I think there's a good segue there. Peter, you're living in currently in 1982, as we were joking, close to 1984 in the UK.
Soviet Republic of United Kingdom.
Soviet Republic of the United Kingdom. Things seem a little bit bleak from the outside. Please tell us what it's like from the inside, if you don't mind.
I mean, it probably looks worse on Twitter,
Okay.
but at the same time, it is terrible.
Okay.
We have the terrible government after terrible government infringing on our liberties. They are arresting 30 people a day for speech. They are raising our taxes. They are destroying our economy. We are ruled by not just incompetence, but what I now think is just fundamentally evil, because there is no way you cannot understand that if you keep kicking the can down the road, you're debasing the currency. And it's the largest transfer of wealth that we have in our society, is from the poorest and the lower middle class up to the rich.
Yep.
And I'm out there, I'm arguing with people about this. I'm telling them, this is making me money. Like, I benefit from this. I'm an asset holder.
Yes.
But this is having a devastating impact. Businesses are closing down. People are losing their jobs. You go to a supermarket. You buy a bag of you say groceries. It's like £50 is one bag. When my mum did the shopping, that was the whole trolley.
Right.
We are squeezing people in society. We're making them unhappy, and we're also taking away their future. And we're seeing a mass exodus of people from the UK now. Young people are going to Dubai because it's tax-free. They can buy a cheap house. Rich people are leaving. And I'm very nervous about the country we're going to have over the next few years. So, yeah, it's not great.
It's an interesting time, but let's touch into this concept of self-sovereignty. Peter, we were talking a little bit about this idea of, the 2017 class, the 2020 class, and this idea of being stewards for the next people who are coming into Bitcoin. Are we doing a good job of that right now? I'll start with Peter and come over to you, Hunter.
I don't always be negative, but no. I probably came into the space in around 2017, and Bitcoin had its version of the Iron Dome, which was technically and economically competent people who wouldn't let you get away with saying stupid shit. And there was a high level of technical debate. We had the block size wars, and there were stewards who would guide you through what was happening, what were the correct decisions. And that carried on to 2021. We had a new influx of people coming in again, technically, economically competent people. I don't feel like we've got that now at the moment. Some of the loudest and biggest voices in the space, I think their interest isn't aligned with what the original kind of libertarian ideas of fighting the man was. And so some of the technical debate has been lost. The technical debate doesn't seem to be so important now. If you're buying through an ETF or if you're buying equities, maybe you don't even care about what Bitcoin is or why it's important. And I think that's why we've now got this kind of stupid Knots v. Core argument that's going on, because some of the technical arguments have been lost. And that's my fear for Bitcoin, is that the bigger it gets, the loudest voices might be getting their power through money rather than through competence. And so I think we need to somehow restore that Iron Dome of sensible people who are guiding people to understand why this technology came to exist, what it's for, what its purpose, how it works. That's my fear.
Yeah.
You bring up the Knots argument that, back in 2016 or so, the Bitcoin community had an argument about the block size war. But you were saying off camera that seemed like a more logical argument in the community, whereas the Knots argument, this new potential hard fork, does not seem that way.
Soft fork, just to be technical correct, I think.
Sorry.
Proposed soft
There we go.
Well, look, back in 2017, you could understand both arguments for bigger blocks and smaller blocks. Obviously, the smaller blocks argument was the most important one because we wanted to maintain decentralization, and that was fine. But you could understand the arguments for bigger blocks. This argument, none of this makes any sense. The Knots people are retards. We should be ignoring them.
Here comes
spicy takes.
No, but they are. I mean, they've created drama, and I don't think it really is a technical argument. I think it is a power play. If you look at the people and the way they argue, they're like activists. Like left-wing activists. They're harassing and they're, group attacking people, but their arguments are completely retarded.
There's been a lot of ad hominem attacks, which are really sad to see, attacking people instead of attacking ideas, which is a shame. But Hunter, I want to come back to you. This idea, we were talking a little bit about this earlier, people not fully understanding Bitcoin, needing someone to sort of lead them into it, explain it to them. And I think you do a really good job of bridging this gap between understanding the Bitcoin ethos, but also understanding TradFi. So can you talk a little bit about your role and hopefully what other people in the space are doing?
And I got into Bitcoin through education. I'm an adjunct faculty member at the University of Colorado and got asked to teach the first course on Bitcoin back in 2017. And so really, I have a background as systems engineer, and so went deep in the tech. And as Peter was talking about, came in through understanding really the power of the decentralized architecture and the design in terms of what it enables, and the scarcity element, right? The self-sovereignty, censorship resistant. And I think what I see at conferences and more people talking about, they come into it because of what they look like, a quick buck in terms of something they can day trade, without understanding both Bitcoin as a asset class, hopefully to bridge the income gap that was referenced in terms of UK and I think more globally, but also the fundamental philosophies behind why we value the technology the way we value it. And how do you participate? I think we are only successful as an ecosystem if we have the level of participation, both in terms of education and stewardship of the technology, right? The technology is in our controls with the BIPs, being able to make recommendations about how the technology should change. Everybody does have a say in a vote. How it can be evolved.
I mean, look, every time there is a war in Bitcoin, it's usually about power. It's just usually about power. And every time somebody has tried to take control of Bitcoin or take power for themselves, they've got chewed up and spat out. because Bitcoin is an organic system, right?
And it doesn't belong to one
It
person.
doesn't belong to one person. So it's every single time it's failed. And this one will fail as well. And these people will be discarded and we'll move on. But what we have to do, we have to remember and identify who are the technically competent people and create that Iron Dome again and raise them up and make sure they're at the front of these conferences, on podcasts, and educating people of like the absolute basics of the technical infrastructure of Bitcoin and how it works and what it is we're trying to maintain and keep safe.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I'm curious, Christine, I think you wanted to jump in.
Point of education. In the UK, they're focused on global identity. And so there seems to be a disconnect between the benefits of decentralization that a lot of government officials, maybe the public at large, don't understand. Where do you think that disconnect comes from, and how can that be resolved?
Well, sovereignty is more than just finance. I mean, you want sovereignty over your speech. We don't even have that in the UK at the moment. Can
I ask a quick question there?
Yeah.
Just to preface this, do you think everybody really wants it? Because I remember post 9/11 New York, where Patriot Act comes in, and everyone just keep us safe. We're willing to give up some of our free speech. We're willing to give up some of our. Do you think everyone does really want sovereignty?
No, not everyone understands.
Okay.
And this comes down to education. I mean, our education system in the UK is mainly left. We spit most kids out of the school or the higher education system as left-wing activists because teachers, kind of the majority of teachers are left-wing. And that's, by the way, that's a complete failure of us to be objective. And there was a school group in the UK called Orion, and they manage 8 schools. They were teaching kids in their schools that the Reform, who are probably going to win the next election,
Nigel
are
Farage.
a fascist party, and that's bringing ideology into the schooling system. We shouldn't be doing that. Yeah. But it's a complete and utter failure also of conservatism. Like if you're a libertarian, you're still kind of conservative. We have failed as conservatives because we have allowed cronyism to infect our government. Yep. And if you allow cronyism, and all we're allowing is corruption and debasement. We are debasement. You get kids who get an education who can't get a job, can't get on the housing ladder, and they're looking at the boomers who are having holidays, 5 holidays a year, and they're like, then they're buying into mandamis and the socialists. So, look, I think a lot of people, especially in the UK, they don't really understand freedom and liberty. They don't understand what they're giving up. They take safety, and then downstream they face the consequences of their freedom and liberty being taken away. And this is really important. Like, this sovereignty argument is more than just a financial sovereignty. It's sovereignty over you as an individual. I always look back at the Declaration of Independence, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If you read the Declaration of Independence, and if you go and read what the actual rights that the colonies had with the king, they pretty match what we have with our government right now in the UK, and even some in the US. I mean, the fact that you kicked us out, and the fact that you fought for liberty in your country and what you've allowed to come to exist is every single thing that they wrote about in the Federalist Papers is pretty much happening.
It's coming to life right now. Hunter, let's end on a positive note. Let's keep it optimistic as we head into day 2. Your thoughts on where do we go from here? What advice maybe would you give to people out there who do want to be good stewards of Bitcoin and who want to make sure that they do teach people about this core tenet of Bitcoin, which is this idea of self-sovereignty?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing for me is educate people about why we value the asset and think it's a great asset class for sort of longevity. Secondly, encourage people to use it. I think getting people to put it on a wallet, spend it, transfer it is really important for people to understand that power. And then thirdly, I think bringing together some of the topics. It's important to understand how you have responsibility with the ownership. Okay. In terms of having it as an asset class, having it moving you from, I talk about it from helping people move from labor-based income to asset-based income.
Bitcoin Magazine is more than ink on paper. It's printed proof of work, a tangible artifact of the revolution we're living through. Own a piece of Bitcoin's story. Subscribe to Bitcoin Magazine print today and keep history in your hands.
Welcome back to the Bitcoin Magazine News Desk. We're here at Bitcoin Amsterdam 2025, presented by Treasury. Let's get to our star-studded panel. To my left here, I am Frank Corva, Bitcoin journalist, joined to my left by Hunter Albright, Chief Revenue Officer at Salt Lending, as well as the one and only Shinobi, technical editor at Bitcoin Magazine, and Christine Lee, crypto journalist extraordinaire. Hunter, we were just talking off camera about this concept that you've been thinking a lot about, this idea of, I think it's asset-based income versus or labor-based income. Please consider.
I mean, I think the key problem that going around the world and talking to people about that are interested in Bitcoin, one of the key challenges they're facing is that they can't buy a house. They can't get into a first property ownership. And I think Bitcoin is a great vehicle for people to be looking at to start to build wealth. And one of the things I talk about is how they can go from thinking about labor-based income, like working hours to earn income, to acquiring assets such as Bitcoin to then earn income off the assets.
Okay.
And I think that's a real enabler for people thinking about how they can build wealth, but it does require them to take the responsibility to learn more about Bitcoin, learn more about the asset class, but also the financial literacy around how to manage it.
Appreciate that. I want to talk.
Wait, just want to add to that, because off camera we were talking about how you can create leverage off of that and you don't need that much necessarily to start with the Bitcoin backed lending.
I think and it's another topic we talked off camera. People have the misconception you have to buy a full Bitcoin, right? I think we're not doing as much as we need to be doing around education to say you can get into it for as little as $10. Right, you can be buying small amounts, small numbers of Satoshis to start to understand how the asset works. And I think we were talking earlier about, I encourage people to buy it, use it in small amounts, and then start to think about how you can leverage it, how you can borrow against it for liquidity. I really think Bitcoin, this is where Bitcoin for me is democratizing wealth building. It allows the strategies that the ultra wealthy have been using for centuries in terms of borrowing against their real estate portfolios, their stock portfolios, to have an advantage of tax efficiency, to advantage of wealth building, and really deferring a lot of those costs while they get to use the capital now and really reinvest it. And I think that's something I'm really passionate about, trying to educate more people about, because Bitcoin can be a way of creating that financial independence and live around the world where, if you're just earning income, you're really tied to where you live and the income and the laws of the country that you habitate in.
Appreciate that, Hunter. Shinobi, I want to go to you quick. I think we have about 30 seconds before we cut back to the main stage, but maybe some key things that Bitcoiners who are now coming into this space should really be keeping in mind. We're seeing a lot of financialization of Bitcoin, treasury companies, all this, but let's talk about a little bit about maybe 3 key points, maybe about the Bitcoin ethos that people should be keeping in mind.
Well, I mean, first of all, the entire purpose of this is to disintermediate yourself from all of these types of financial institutions and services. So first and foremost, you should be thinking about that and how to manage the risks entailed with that.
Self-sovereignty, holding your keys. Okay.
If you want to kind of go into the other financial ways that you can leverage or deploy or utilize your Bitcoin, that's a perfectly logical thing. But I think everybody should start first by just accumulating that small stack that they're not going to do that with, and kind of ease themselves into learning how to mitigate the risks that come with more advanced financial contracts.
I appreciate that. I apologize. I think we do have to jump back over, but that is important. First, get some Bitcoin, hold those private keys. All right, we're headed back to the Treasury stage. We'll be there for about a half hour. Stick with us. We'll be right back here at the live desk after this.